podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for All About Android is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
Welcome to All About Android, episode 18, recorded on July 25th, 2011. Your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, apps for the Android faithful. I'm Eileen Rivera.
I'm Jason Howell, not sitting behind a control desk.
No.
It's a little strange.
And this is a new, I don't even know where we are.
This is a new everything.
Everything's new. We had a new intro. Thank you.
Yeah,
right?
so the intro that you saw, if you're watching the video version, is refracted, which actually, if you watched any of the previous episodes, you saw after kind of the title slate on the video, kind of a blue backdrop with Android characters. It said All About Android. That was like his temporary image slate for the thing he was working on. Well, it turns out what you saw is kind of what he's been working on, and it looks a little bit different, but it's pretty sweet, I gotta say. So if you haven't seen it, go check out the video version.
Yay!
And
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was
Fans
great
are fantastic.
timing. Great timing.
I
The
know.
new set, the new open.
Totally.
Now I'm totally nervous.
I know.
This feels like legit.
It kind of ups the ante a little bit.
Now
It's a
you
little
may be wondering, we're missing our third co-host, Ron Richards, and that's because he is still coming down from the Comic-Con high.
Yeah, he just got back this afternoon.
Yeah, he was on a
tight
plane and whatever. And speaking of Comic-Con, I have new friends. This is El Ponderoso.
El Ponderoso.
He's got a cape.
Wow.
I got him at Comic-Con for $11. He's my new buddy. What do you think?
Cool. I like it, you know. It's
He's got a mask
cool
and a
character.
cape. He's all
It's pretty
like
sweet. Did they have
superhero.
just like a ton of these floating around?
They had
Comic-Con?
4 different versions of them, and I got this at the DKE Toys booth, and they were $11, and every day they sold a different one. This was Thursdays.
It was kind of like their
Android.
Happy Meal prize,
Kind
essentially.
of. But it's really cute. And
yeah, it is.
This is the only one I could get to on that day. And so there were 4 total. Now, I also went to another booth, and I'm really sorry, I don't remember the name of the booth, but I got one of those surprise boxes. You know, you buy the box, you don't know what version of Android
you're going to get one of the
get.
characters, but who knows which one.
And my story is the original Android that I got, I didn't want because it was just a clear. And some people really like that, but I wanted one with a little more flash. And so I went back to the booth, and there were other people buying the Androids. And somebody said, hey, I like yours. And I said, well, what do you have? And I liked theirs, and we swapped. So this isn't actually the one that I
Looks like
opened
a
up.
wrapper.
There's a wrapper.
Oh, nice.
But he's like a little speed racer. Speed racer.
So it's like an
Speed
Android
racer.
within the Android.
Yeah.
It's kind of a Total Recall thing going there.
Kinda. But yeah, isn't he cute? So these are my 2 new buddies.
Nice. That's cool.
El Ponderoso and
They're done by the same
Speed
the
Racer.
same company.
I don't know about this guy, but this guy is.
Because they look very, very similar,
Yeah.
like size and.
Well, this is. I know for sure this is designed by Andrew Bell, who's done other really cool Androids. And I'm not quite sure about this, but the box both say Android.com. Yeah, Tony, if you scroll down a little bit, if you're looking at the video, there are the 4 Androids that at Comic-Con that you could have chosen. El Ponderoso's there on the second one. I don't know the other names, but they're pretty cool. I was going to get the silver guy, but yeah, didn't get to go back. That was on sale on Saturday. But anyways, Comic-Con was
That's cool.
fun.
I wouldn't have expected Android, figurines to be
There were
floating
tons.
around Comic-Con.
The first booth that I ran into were a bunch of zombified Androids, and those were like $100 a piece.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah,
I said, I can't
collectibles.
afford that, so
Yeah.
we'll skip that. But no, they were all over the place, so that was really cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good score. Good score.
Thank you. All right, well, this week we're going to be talking games. We're going to be telling you about how Eric Schmidt vows to defend HTC. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Samsung Galaxy S and a possible release date in the U.S. And we also have a special guest who we're pretty much going to introduce right now.
Yeah,
and this is Nick Gotch from Subatomic Studios, and they are the developers of Fieldrunners. Hey, Nick.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now, you're going to be on the show with us the entire way through, so thank you.
Sure.
But you know what? First, we have some questions for you. You're our first developer that we've ever had on the show.
Oh,
I think,
that's a
right,
privilege.
Yeah, I believe so. And I mean, especially, you know, even beyond that, game developer of a game that I would say is pretty darn popular in the Android space, Fieldrunners, which, what would you say, just kind of a
Tower defense.
tower defense.
Mega super awesome tower defense game.
Yeah, that really shines on a tablet. I was playing it actually last night, and I was having a blast with it. But it's awesome to have you on and to kind of pick your brain and kind of see what it's like developing for Android.
Oh, sure. I'm here to answer all your questions.
Right on. So first of all, I will go ahead and say that some of these questions that we'll throw at you didn't necessarily come from my brain. This is just the perfect use of Google+. I've been loving using Google+ to crowdsource things. And I actually know a lot of the people that follow us on Google+ are developers or aspiring developers. So I kind of opened up kind of a post on there to see what people wanted to hear.
That's actually how we found Nick, because he approached me and I said, oh, you should be on our show at some point. So there you go, more uses for G+.
Yeah, but I mean, it's absolutely perfect for this. You know, you post a comment and within like 2 minutes, you got like 5 or 10 replies from people that were right there when the thing came through. And in 24 hours, you've got like 50. So it's a really good, perfect use for that technology, for the site. So I would just go ahead and say that a lot of the questions that we got were definitely development related. So let's just start there. Now, first of all, just so that people know, you worked for developing the Android version of Fieldrunners, but not the iOS version. Is that right?
That's correct. I actually started with Subatomic full-time roughly about a year ago, and my brother, actually, who's the CEO of Subatomic, is the original developer of the iOS version of our app. I, in the past like 8 months, basically, have taken that iOS code and ported it to Android, and I've been the sole developer doing that. So there's been a lot of hurdles, but you know, we got through there.
Yeah, no.
And I think the end product's good. Yeah.
Right on. Well, so initially, kind of coming into this interview, I would say a lot of the questions were actually very specifically about developing for iOS versus developing for Android. And, you know, it sounds like you weren't involved necessarily with iOS, but seeing as how it was your brother, I have to imagine you guys traded war stories for each of them. What could you say about that?
Well, I mean, so actually, even though I didn't write the original iOS code, porting it actually involves understanding it. So, I mean, I did have to go through, I had to know how to build it for the iOS platform. I had to understand how the Objective-C worked and everything. So I have some of a understanding of how development for like iPhone and iPad goes.
So you mentioned hurdles. Can you describe some of those hurdles?
So there are a lot of things that you don't originally see when you go into a port like this. I mean, some of the things are like, we ran into bumps with like OpenGL, for example. Like some of the things that work on iPhone don't quite work the same on Android. One of the major bumps I hit was OpenGL is like the graphical library, and what it does is it allows you to code on a high level, and it kind of just takes that and draws it to the screen. And OpenGL is very componentized kind of system. Like you say what you want to do directly, and it just does it. It doesn't. There's no like rounding about of it. What we end up doing with that is we tried to take our OpenGL code and put it directly on Android, but that didn't work out very well. There were some things that came up. Like one of them was on iPhone, when you suspend the app, it just it retains everything in memory, so that when you go back in, you can just open it back up right to where you left off. On Android, one of the things we discovered was when you exit the app, or when it goes into its pause state, for some reason, OpenGL actually wipes out the entire graphical context. So going back in, the game would start back up fine, but then you wouldn't have anything displayed on the screen. It would just be blank. So, I mean, the game is still running. You could hear the audio going, but you couldn't see anything.
Do you think that has something to do with just, like we've talked a lot about, you know, kind of the need or rather the lack of a need for task-killing apps, and just the fact that the Android system in general is built to the point to where it kind of manages those processes in a different way than what you might think. You don't necessarily have to kill an app because when it's not in view, it's not necessarily running. Is that a result of that?
And that's a great point too. I mean, that's one of the requests we get a lot. We get a lot of people sending us requests asking, can we add an exit button, an explicit exit button in the app?
Right. And
that's actually one of the things I'm against doing, because Google themselves actually recommend against it. The way an Android app works is you hit the home button, and it's supposed to, the operating system is supposed to handle that for you. So going directly, like having an actual explicit exit button is kind of against the design method that they like to do with Android devices. So I'm kind of against doing that. Now, what we did add in the latest version that's currently out, we did add it so if you hit the back button in the game, it'll exit out. Because, I mean, we wanted to give something to people because they were requesting this so much. But I think it's like people are used to Windows, Linux, and stuff that kind of put this thought in your head that you need to have an exit button for everything, or you need to have that little X that you can push and close.
Sure.
And that's kind of the mentality you want to get out of when you're dealing with Android.
Yeah, absolutely, because it seems like it's definitely working on some of that stuff for you, so you don't have to think about it. Do you use any other like third-party frameworks? This is absolutely not a question for me, but Scott Drew on the Google Plus thread was curious what third-party frameworks you use.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, one thing to keep in mind is that we don't want to use too many third-party apps, because every time you add a third-party app to your code, you're creating a dependency on them. And I mean, that's great with like community supported stuff, open source type things, but if you're going with commercial tools and third-party apps like that, then you're dependent on, well, one, if that tool, they decide to make some kind of change because they feel it's appropriate, you're forced to use it. You don't have any other choice once you've already built your entire app around their tool. And then secondly, if anything ever happens to their business, you better hope that they stick around, because then you're going to be trying to fill in these holes. That said, we do use a few. Most of them are like, well, like we use OpenGL, and we use Free Image, Light ZPNG, Tiny XML. But the big one that we use as a commercial tool is actually the Fmod audio library. Because with all the different device architectures and everything, it's useful for us to be able to program just basic sound calls. Like say, we want to play this sound, we want to play this music in the background, and basic calls for volume and effects and everything like that. We don't want to have to rewrite that code for every different device and all the different configurations that people can have. So it actually makes sense in that case to use Fmod. And they've done pretty well. We actually use them in our code, and it has made the process so much easier for us.
Sure. That actually kind of leads rather nicely into the F word, and this is a different F word, the fragmentation
it's a long
word.
F word.
Yeah,
it's a very long F
really long
word.
one, not quite the one you're thinking of initially. So it sounds like, you know, obviously everybody, you know, is kind of, it's being painted the image.
Just say the word, Jason. Say it.
I can't say it. No, I can't do it.
Fragmentation.
It's definitely an issue when you're developing, obviously. What are some of the challenges that you've faced when it comes to just the number of different devices and handsets out there that Fieldrunners, on Android specifically versus iOS, is going to run on?
Well, I mean, that has been one of the biggest obstacles in developing for Android. I mean, when you're developing for iPhone, you have a very small set of handsets to deal with, and if your app works on one of them, it's very likely it'll work on many on the other ones too. The only big difference is like maybe the iPad versus the iPhone. But when you're dealing with Android, there's literally hundreds of devices out there, and it creates a problem for us because there's no way we can test on all of that. I mean, besides the different versions and all the different architectures and devices, there's also, I mean, people can configure them different. Android is an open system, unlike Windows Phone or iPhone, which are more closed, and people can configure them differently. One of the issues that we ran into was people had custom keyboards set up on Android, and that was giving them problems. They were reporting this into us. Now, we never even thought to test different keyboards on these devices. And so, you know, people are trying to type their names for the high score and whatnot, and they can't get anything to type. We told them our original fix was just to switch over and use the default keyboard for Android. That worked fine, and then in a later update, I've managed to correct it, and now we do support a lot of the custom keyboards. But it's like things like that people configure differently for the devices that makes it hard for the developer. Android is definitely the friend of the user. I mean, users. They can get a device that's custom just for them. It does exactly what they want. But the trade-off for that is, for the developer, it's a lot more that you have to code and test for. I mean, even the screen resolutions has been a big issue. I mean, for other applications, like for iPhone or whatever, you only have specific, like a few different resolutions to deal with. When you're developing a game, art assets are critical, and having to resize them for all these different screen sizes and everything, actually it builds up the size of the app. But if you want to give them an optimal experience, then you need to take that into account and try to handle that as best you can. And with Android, technically, there's no limitation on what size screens that they can have. They can, you can have any arbitrarily sized screen on a device. They usually fall into some categories, but you never know, and you have to code for that and try to give them the best experience you can.
Now, speaking of fragmentation, I'm going to go to Marketplace. What has your experience in the Amazon App Store versus the Android, Google Android Marketplace? I think you're only on the Amazon App Store, and you're coming to the...
No, we actually released now.
Finally released,
as of last Thursday, we are on the U.S. Amazon or the U.S. Google Marketplace.
Right.
So yeah, we originally, our plan was we wanted to release the game for free on the first day and give it, you know, get the name out there, because we don't really, we're very well known on iPhone. We aren't as well known on Android, and we wanted to get it out to people to just try it and become aware of our brand. In doing so, we sent out a press release originally that we're going to go free the first day. We didn't learn until afterward that on the Google market, you can't go free to paid. If you go free, you're stuck at free. Oh. So we instead we then retracted that and said, well, we'll go 99 cents for the first day. And then shortly after that, we got contacted by Amazon, and they told us that, well, if you go with us, we can actually make you free on the first day. So we could give you exactly what you want. And they kind of saved us in a sense. So that's why we decided to do the 2 weeks exclusive with Amazon. And it was a good experience. I mean, we learned a lot about it, and it definitely does. We got a lot of downloads in that free time. So, you know, it's great for getting the word out there, letting people try your app. And then if they like it, they pass on the word to other people. So it has its, it definitely has its benefits. The only downside is it's just in the U.S. and it's not everybody. It's a smaller population. So.
Is it the easiest way to promote your product then? Is, you know, to have the store promote you, or is there other ways that you promote, you know, your app?
I mean, well, there are other ways to promote the app. I mean, we have our Twitter account, Facebook, and all of that. We do things like that. Having Amazon promote us a little bit was definitely helpful. I mean, without that, I don't know that we would have gotten to as many people as we did, and that was the key point there. We wanted to get it out, let people use it, try it, and then spread the word. So Amazon was a good choice for that. That said, they have a small market, and Google was great. They let us, even though our exclusivity period was 2 weeks with Amazon, Amazon let us go with Google International for that time, since they didn't apply to the international market. And we did. We were, as of that same day, the release day, we were in the international market on Google Market. Now we're on everything. We're on both Amazon and Google Market. So.
Awesome. I guess just to kind of wrap this up, and we're going to be talking a lot more about the game,
and we'll show it off
specifically a little bit later, just so you know. We haven't spent a whole lot of time talking about Fieldrunners, but we're going to hit that in the arena. It's an all games arena this week. But you know, I'm just going to go right back to Android versus iOS, because there were so many people interested in this particular question. Which do you think is the easiest ecosystem to program for? I mean, I realize that iOS, like you were saying earlier, Android really seems for the user, and maybe that comes at a disadvantage to the developer. iOS maybe is the opposite of that. I don't know. What would you say along those lines?
Well, I mean, I would have to say overall that developing for iOS is still easier than developing for Android, just because of that fragmentation, and the testing alone is difficult. I mean, we at Subatomic got 8 devices, 2 tablets, tested thoroughly, and we still get reports from people using different arcane devices, some which we've never even heard of, that have problems, and we deal with that, and are trying to get fixes out there as fast as possible for those. So the coding aspects for Android aren't that much more difficult than iPhone, but getting a bug-free, high-quality app out on Android is more difficult. iPhone, it was just great because you could test it right in-house on every possible device, and,
exactly.
and you'd know it works. So.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, the market, they're doing things to kind of help along those lines, allowing you to hide, you know, an app from devices that don't necessarily support the app. They actually just last week, I believe it was last week, rolled out the ability to serve up multiple APK download files depending on the hardware that you're using. So they're trying to kind of bridge that gap, and I think it's all helping.
And that's actually, that is like a lifesaver for us. I mean, we get one of the biggest issues that we've been getting reports on is certain devices have a download cache limit, and it doesn't just apply to our game. It applies to basically any app that's over a certain size. I know that some of the devices, the cap is like 30 megs, and if the app is over that from the Google market, then it runs into a problem because it'll let them buy the app, but then they can't download it and install it, and that becomes a problem. So when they made this announcement that they would support multiple APKs for a single product, I mean, that's great, because now we're actually working on it right now, working on a version of the app that will split up the file and download the assets separately so that it can run and not go over this cache limit. So it actually saves us a ton of headache.
I'm sure.
All right, Nick. Well, I guess you're going to stick around. Thank you. You know, feel free to chime in on anything that we talk about, and we are going to show off your game. So we're going to definitely need you to highlight certain aspects of Fieldrunners. But I think we're going to go ahead and move on. And Tony, it's time for the news.
So, you know, we knew that we were going to be a little heavy with other things like the interview today, so not a whole lot to follow up on, but I did want to just talk briefly about last week. Feels a little bit like old news now, because I think it was like a day or two after our last episode. But Google's Eric Schmidt, actually he was speaking at the Google Mobile Conference in Tokyo last week, and he addressed the HTC Apple patent situation, and he kind of addressed one of the questions that we had on last week's show, which is, you know, if this is Google's problem, if this is something that's inherent inside the Google OS, does Google have a responsibility to kind of step in and help these manufacturers? And Schmidt actually said, quote, we've seen an explosion of Android devices entering the market, and because of our successes, competitors are responding with lawsuits as they cannot respond through innovations. Rare. He said, I'm not too worried about this. And he continued to go on. He was asked about you know, what would Google do if HTC is hit with a giant lawsuit and, you know, and has to pay a lot of money. He basically said, we will make sure they don't lose then, which is somewhat open-ended. I don't know if that necessarily means that Google's going to step in and pay all their, pay any fees that HTC's slapped with, or just give them, law muscle, I guess. But he addressed it directly, so.
Maybe it's time for me to make a "What would Eric say?"
I know.
segment.
I thought that, actually. I was like, oh,
darn,
no.
it wasn't Andy. It was Eric who said that. Oh, wow.
And somewhat related to this, Google is actually now in talks also with a wireless patent firm, InterDigital, which owns and licenses about 8,800 patents relating to wireless data, noise interference during phone calls, other technologies in cell phone space. So, I mean, I think their eyes are open.
Yeah.
It's definitely a question whether they should have been open a little bit earlier, but it seems like they're kind of going in, they're approaching the fact that they absolutely do need to kind of fill up their patent portfolio, because right now they're not very rich in that aspect. So
Good luck to Google.
good luck to Google. Good luck, Eric Schmidt.
And we have got a couple of emails too.
Yeah.
Moving
Oh,
on.
I will do
That's
this.
still you.
That's right. Sorry. See, I should be paying attention to this now that I don't have the excuse of switching. So Luis Ojeda wrote in and said, "Hey, Jason, I was watching AAA and was a bit surprised of the app you chose last week for finding a lost phone."
Why?
And I thought this was really cool because I had not heard of this app.
Okay.
Actually, real quick, Nick, do you root your phone, or do you have a rooted phone?
No, I don't. One of the things with all the devices we test, we don't want anything rooted because we want to make sure that we're testing for the most common user experience.
Sure. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Absolutely. Well, if anyone who is rooted, this is actually a pretty cool app. He says, "From rooter to rooter, let me introduce you to Theft Aware 2.0. It's $15 after a trial, so it is a little bit of money. You can find it in the Android market. This app will allow you to track your device even if they hard reset your device. So it does a lot of really cool stuff because it accesses your phone, and it has actually functionality that doesn't require root, but because it has the ability to kind of tap into the fact that your phone is rooted, you can do things that you couldn't do with an app that you just simply download to an unrooted phone. No internet connection is necessary on the phone, as it works purely through SMS remote control, so you can do all of your commands through SMS. I don't think that's a root feature. But if the thief changes the SIM card of the phone, TheftAware will invisibly send the phone number of the thief, what they change it to the recipient number that you've programmed into it. It installs all this underneath the layer. The only way anyone who steals a phone that has this installed could possibly wipe it out is if they know how to flash a new ROM. That's like the only way that it can kind of wipe out the fingerprints of TheftAware that are buried deep inside. You can also make the phone secretly dial you to spy on the thief when they're running around with your phone.
Oh, it was like that Mac book that was lost, and that guy had the camera taking a picture, and then he totally recovered his laptop later.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so this is just another reason for me to root my phone, and because I need another app to help track my phone.
I know. Well, it's just really cool that you can't necessarily delete this. I guess it's possible, but like you said, Nick, most people aren't rooting and ROMing their phones. Right. I'd say your likelihood is that the thief isn't either, so they're not going to flash a new ROM. They're not even going to know, hopefully. So.
All right.
Yeah.
We have another email from Randy Niven who says, during your app segment on missing device software, you left off the best, and I'm probably going to butcher the name, Cerberus.
Yeah, I think that's
Is that how you say that?
I think so.
Okay.
Good.
It's on the market and reasonably priced with low impact on your phone. The website allows you to do much more than the apps you covered, so he says. I guess it does have a lot of the same features, plus a web dashboard component. So another tip from a listener. Thank you, Randy.
Yeah, that's something that their TheftAware didn't have, was the whole web dashboard and finding your phone on the map. And Cerberus kind of does a lot of the TheftAware stuff plus the map. So
get both.
There you go.
That's me. I always get so many. Okay, so I guess it's time for our hardware section.
Good.
So this new phone that I have, and I've been taunting and flaunting my lovely Samsung Galaxy S2. There might be a release date in August. I don't know if it's going to be quite the same phone that I have. Yes, in the U.S. It might not be quite the same phone that I have because I have the unlocked European version. But earlier this week, Shin Jong-kyun, president of Samsung's mobile business and digital imaging, told reporters at a media briefing, quote, "We expect to release the Galaxy S2 in the U.S. market sometime in August." Nick, do you have any intel on this? Do you know anything?
What do you know, Nick?
What do you know as a developer?
I don't know anything about when it's coming out, but I do know that is a phone that should work pretty well with our game. So.
It does.
Yeah.
I could tell you that right now. It looks really gorgeous.
Nice.
It looks really gorgeous on the screen. Also, related, there was a story that Samsung smartphone sales may actually outshine Apple. This is according to Neil Mostyn of Strategy Analytics, who has said that Samsung's second quarter smartphone sales might be anywhere between 18 to 21 million. No definitive number, but Apple's is 20.3 million. So, no specific numbers, but it sounds like, Samsung is right in there, and lawsuit, Apple, that just takes it all back.
Yeah, Samsung and Apple, they're just not the best of friends.
No.
And they seem to... Did you actually hear the news, I think it was at the end of last week, that there was a Samsung kind of accessory for the Galaxy Tab that mimics the magnet iPad cover thing. So it doesn't actually launch an app when you use it, but it does the whole foldy into a triangle thing and props it up. And Samsung actually, to their credit, removed it a few days later.
Oh, they
because it was
removed
getting
it, yeah.
such.
Yeah.
I mean, it was blatant. It was like, yeah, now you wonder why. But I don't think Samsung was the manufacturer of it specifically.
Okay.
I think they were possibly selling it in
But
their
it's
store,
possible on their hardware.
But I mean, it was pretty much the same thing.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Well, I don't know. I say that and whatever. Take what you want. There is a lawsuit. There might be some reasons.
Also, Lenovo unveiled its iPad K1. It's and I guess this is notable. I mean, it's got a lot of the same functionality that you've seen in a lot of other tablets. It's Tegra 2 chipset, 1 gigahertz, 10.1-inch screen, 1280 by 800 display, 1 gig RAM. Your typical 16 or 32 gig onboard storage, all that kind of stuff. But the thing that it has that most other tablets don't have legitimately, I guess you could say at this point, is full Netflix support.
Oh.
So I think it's launching with full Netflix support, first of its kind for Honeycomb. And it also has this nifty kind of offline storage capability. So say you're going on to a flight.
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
You want to rent a movie, but you won't have internet. You can kind of store the rental on your tablet. So
I want this. So it's kind of like what Google's wanting to do with pinning, right?
Yeah,
Same
exactly.
thing, same, okay.
Exactly.
Are you developing for Honeycomb and upcoming ice cream sandwich yet, Nick?
Oh, we're not doing anything with Ice Cream Sandwich at the moment, but Honeycomb we do support. And actually, I wanted to mention, too, that the device that I use, the tablet that I have, is actually the Asus Transformer Pad, which I don't know gets enough love on the show.
Apparently,
but it's
yes.
an
We
awesome
don't give it enough
tablet.
love because we haven't touched one.
Yeah, we haven't played around with
I'm
one
just going to
yet.
have to drop the money and buy it, and then...
Believe me, in the last couple of weeks, I think our eyes are open to the passionate fan base of the Asus Transformer. So hold it up again if you don't mind and show it off.
Oh, yeah, it's great. Actually, this is one of the top devices that people are writing to us about as far as our game goes. I mean, we get the Galaxy Tab, obviously, and we get a lot of Zoom emails, but we do get a lot on the Asus Transformer Pad, so I think it is a very popular tablet.
Nice.
All right, there we go. More love. More love.
Let's hope we get one in-house at some point. It would be great to play around with one and see.
We have love for it. We would love to love it.
Okay, it's getting a little weird.
I know, it's the end of the day.
Yeah, it's the end of a long weekend, actually. All right, well, let's move on to another email. We have a few to get to this week. Let's see here. This is Andy from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. He says, I'm curious if you can provide insight as to what hardware specs really matter when buying a phone, specifically in regards to the amount of RAM versus processor speed. I'm trying to decide between an HTC Thunderbolt, which is single core, 768 megabyte RAM, and a Droid X2, which is dual core, 512 megabyte RAM, but don't know which of the two specs is more important. I thought this was a really good question. I really didn't know the answer of it. So what do you do when you don't know the answer to something? You go to Google Plus and you ask other people and see what they say. We got a lot of really good answers. The link is in the show, will be found in the show notes at twit.tv/AAA. One of the replies was from Alan Schneider, who said, I'd go with more RAM in this case. The first OS to really take advantage of dual core for phones will be Ice Cream Sandwich. That's kind of, you know, one of the limitations right now. I think that the mistake people make around dual core is, well, it's got 2 cores, so automatically everything's going to be so much faster. Developers, and Nick, you could probably speak to this a little bit, actually have to program to take advantage of those 2 cores. Otherwise, I think it's just running the same, right?
Right. Yeah, one of the things, I mean, you want to target as many devices as possible. So writing specific code for anything like this doesn't really make sense unless you have a large enough consumer base, unless there's a strong enough demand for it. I mean, right now, anything that's specific to any particular type of hardware, we try to avoid because we're trying to keep it to a broad audience. This new split APK thing that Google introduced actually is great because now if you want to do that, like you can write a version specifically for tablets. One of the things we do different on iPhone to iPad is the iPad version of our game actually supports multiplayer. We don't have that on the iPhone version, and we don't have that on Android, any of the Androids right now, because the tablet runs the same APK as the phone. But now that you can split the APK, it's a possibility. We may be able to add that in the future for tablets. So,
would you, just along this line really quick, since you're talking about it, would you say that that really ups kind of the work that you have to do as a developer to kind of write all of these things, or is it just that you've already done the hard work by creating the app and then it's just minor tweaks to kind of get it optimized for each device? It seems like a lot of work potentially in the long run.
Well, I can put it this way. The game, we actually had Fieldrunners on Android playable back in January. We didn't get it out until July. Because it was all these little things that you have to adjust for specific devices, all these like small steps that just weren't quite right for the user. Yeah. So trying to get something that covers everything does take a lot of time, and unless you have a huge demand for it, it's not something really worth spending a lot of time on.
Sure. Well, just to round this out, Alan went on to say, if it's for a few months, the Thunderbolt, otherwise the Droid. And then Nicole Lee, who actually works for CNET, does the Dialed In podcast and reviews tons of phones over there. She's such a good source of knowledge around phones. Actually chimed in as well. She said, on paper, I tend to side with the dual-core Tegra because it is really much faster. Graphics load quicker, rendering is faster, multitasking is better, etc. But that's all if you don't factor in blur and the fact that it doesn't have 4G LTE. And honestly, at this point, I'm all about 4G LTE. So yes to the X2 if you're not into 4G, but why aren't you? So I thought that was a really good response. And yeah, I mean, once Ice Cream Sandwich kind of hits, I mean, then at least on an OS level, you're going to see a lot of improvements around dual core, because let's face it, a lot of these higher end phones now going forward are going to be at least dual core, if not more. So.
Okay, we got one more email, and this is in response to our last episode from Mike in Anchorage, Alaska. In one of your episodes, you talked about cameras and tablets. You had made the point that you don't have a use for them, but I feel it could be job dependent. I didn't make that point. I said we needed cameras on the tablets.
I just posed the question. I said, well, what are we doing with cameras on tablets?
Well, Mike says, I'm a salesperson at a local furniture store here in Anchorage, Alaska. All of the sales stuff here have tablets, 4 Android and 3 iPad 2s. And I and the other sales staff use the camera in them all the time. Customers want a picture of a sofa or something else. We have the program Print Share installed and can print to any of the local printers, or we can just email them the picture. We also use them to take pictures in a customer's home to help them with their furniture needs. I do agree that using it to take pictures on a trip 4 while out can be a little strange.
Like, I can't imagine, like, going to a concert and bringing my tablet so I can take a picture.
But remember at Google I.O., everybody
No,
had
I
them
know.
up
That's
there and they were
exactly
taking
what
pictures
I
of
was like,
Jane's
this is the
Addiction,
only
and that
time
was
I'm
so
ever going to see
weird.
this many tablets raised in the air taking pictures of Jane's Addiction. Like,
And I think they made a comment like, oh, are everybody going to go out with tablets now to concerts?
pretty much. Right.
That's it for emails. And, man, it's flying by. I guess it's time for the arena.
Yeah, let's step into the arena. Let's get it
Come on, Tony.
Wang.
Tony, we want to get in the arena.
Yeah.
Ooh.
2 enter, 1 lives. Android Arena.
Radical
Yes.
work, Tony. Thank you.
All right, this week it's
I'm pumped
games. But we have our poll from last week.
Yeah, we have a poll from last week. Oh, well, it was a good route here. Yet again, the percentages didn't knock in, but the pie chart looks good, so that's all I care about. It looks like Seek Droid almost beat Lookout, but Lookout did win with 68 votes. Seek Droid at 64. You weren't like. It wasn't a runaway.
I know, it wasn't a
victory for you.
runaway. It wasn't a runaway. You're right.
I was almost there. Where's my droid? Rounding out the 3rd spot with 24 votes. I do wonder.
Or maybe I'm competitive.
If the Root app that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I wonder how that would have scored. What was it? Theft Aware 2. But anyways, that's in the past. Let's move forward. What do we have this week? Well, we have games. It just made sense. We've got Nick Gotch, who's the developer of Fieldrunners for Subatomic Studios.
You should go first.
Yeah, Nick, why don't you finally tell people kind of about your game? And I actually have it on tablet, so I'll go ahead and show it off. I'll load it up here while you talk.
Okay. So Fieldrunners, I mean, it's a tower defense game, which is not anything really new. I mean, they've existed in the past. But what Fieldrunners does is we try to take the tower defense type game and apply it to a broad audience. We wanted to make it something that people could play across the board. So we've actually heard of people like, we know of a little girl that's like 4 years old that plays Fieldrunners, and we know of some older people too that absolutely love the game. So the goal was to try to keep it simple. The way I think of it, it's a gateway tower defense game. I mean, it's something to get people into the tower defense genre. Very easy to learn and pick up, and all you have to do is you go in, you drag out towers, you want to stop the little guys from running across the screen. So you have, for the basic map, you have 4 simple towers, towers that slow them down, towers that just shoot at them, and then more powerful towers like an electric tower that can like zap them out. And the key point is to try to develop a strategy for how to stop them from getting across. The first thing people generally do is they like to just plop down towers straight across, kind of like what you're doing there. But the more advanced players, like one of the things they like to get into is the best way to do it is to create a maze so that you can kind of slow them down as they're walking across, and they have to walk back and forth and try to get across. And it's a lot of fun to play and very addictive. You play it a little bit, and then next thing you know, it's like hours later, and you're missing your job or whatever. So
you're getting fired from TWiT because all you do is play Fieldrunners all day. Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. I was playing it last night. I will be honest, I hadn't played it before loading it up last night, and I knew I wanted to play it before the show, and I ended up playing it for like an hour and a half.
See?
Sitting on the couch, researching, getting work done. At one point, I turned to my wife. I was like, wow, it's gotta suck to have my job. I have to play this game for an hour and a half. Wow, that really sucks. But it's a lot of fun, and I do understand what you were saying there too. My total instinct the first time through was to do the long line of different things. And I mean, at some point, it's just going so fast. At one point, I misdropped one in the path, and what do you know? They went around it. And, kind of ding, the bell went off.
That's exactly what I did, and I got really frantic. Deleting, okay, get that, and then get the higher level, and then move over, and I got
if you look on YouTube, you'll see like people post tons of videos for their strategy for how to defeat the game and get high scores. So it's really cool.
And it's just kind of an endless stream until you die, essentially, right?
Well, there's so if you play it in the classic mode, there's 100 levels, and you actually win if you get to the 100th level, the 100th wave, basically, of units going across. You can play it in endless mode, and in endless mode, it just keeps going until you die, and you know, you can just rack up the score that way. So.
Cool. Ayaz in the chat room, by the way, thinks that "Endless Stream Until You Die" should be an album title. I don't know who that would be. Ayaz, it'll be for your new band. You can go ahead and have that title on me. It's cool. Cool. Well, thanks for talking about Fieldrunners. I have a really good feeling that that's going to be the top of this.
Yeah,
because it's that awesome. Eileen, why don't you go next?
Okay, my game is called They Need to Be Fed. It's 96 cents in the Android marketplace, and let me launch it here right now. It is by Yo-Yo Games Limited and Jesse Venbrooks. So here's the opening screen. Let me see if I can show it to you a little bit better there. Play. You want to know how to play? This is how you play. See this little guy here? You walk, you jump, you hurdle, you get a diamond, you go in, you jump to another one, you get to the very end. It's a platformer game. And then you let this cute little black blob here with teeth eat it. And then you move on. That's the game. All right, so let me just show you. Basically, there you are. You've got movement to the left and to the right. You've got two little, I can't see if you can see that yet. You can see that.
We can see that.
So here, I'm gonna move. Oh, but it goes all the way around, and then you can also jump. And what I want to do is jump to the next cube that's across here. Oh, but you don't want to do that, because then you'll die, and then you have to start
spikes.
over.
They get you every time.
The spikes here, you want to avoid spikes. And the game gets harder and harder, but here, I'm going to do this. I'm going to jump, I'm going to get a diamond, and then I'm going to jump again. Oh, hey, Mr. Hungry Blob. Yeah! I've changed the level. Now, it gets a little harder, as you would expect. I'm going to move out. I'm in World 3 here. And you get exploding balls. So here I am on the square. I'm going to jump here. Oh, I took too long.
Oh, yeah, it counts down and disappears.
Yeah, it counts down, so you got to hurry up and go. Jump, jump, jump. Yeah. And in later levels, you get things shooting at you. You've got, bullets coming at you. You've got, more time constraints. Oops. This is kind of hard to play in the end.
Yeah, it really is.
Oh, and
although
I
it's
died.
better, it's easier doing it here than it was at the other studio.
It is. So this is a new platformer out, 96 cents, and to me it's pretty addictive. Oh,
wow.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I need to concentrate a little bit more on my game. That's really all there is to it. And again, the levels get harder and harder and harder. There's like a 10-minute video online from the game developer. And I'm like, oh my God, I haven't even gotten to that level yet, where things are shooting at you, and then there's mazes and different colored levels and whatnot. Some people say that there are not enough levels. What do you say? What do you say when people say that kind of thing to you, Nick? There are not enough levels. I beat it. Too easy.
Program more.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have endless mode, so we can get around with that.
What do we say? We just don't cut it off.
endless.
That's what we do. Good answer. Good answer. Well, my game I actually discovered last week, and I'm a huge fan of kind of games that have that kind of retro feel to them.
Cool.
I know the last time we did games, I kind of,
blew it away with Duck Hunt.
Yeah, blew it away with Duck Hunt, although I knew that was going to appeal to the retro.
So he's doing it again,
audience.
Everybody.
Well, this is not a game that you've necessarily played on a retro gaming machine or anything, but it looks a lot like it is. It's called Blue Kid, and that's spelled B-L-O-O and then Kid. I'll go ahead and bring it up here and try and do this. There we go. There we go. So even right down to the music kind of has a nice little retro feel to it.
Retro.
The graphics themselves are very kind of, I guess they're Super Nintendo quality. Although the gameplay, I would say, I'm trying to get it to go down so I'm not fighting it. The gameplay is maybe more along the line of NES. So I'll go ahead and play. I've played through a few of the levels here, but it's a lot like the Angry Birds approach, where you've got different worlds, and within there you've got a number of different levels to conquer, and depending on how well you do, you get 1 through 3 stars. this is distracting me. So I'll go ahead and start on the second world, the first level here. And, you know, obviously the first levels that you do are just super easy, but as you kind of continue on further, they get harder and harder. What you see here is just a single platformer screen and a bunch of different objects on it. It kind of has a Super Mario feel to it. It also kind of feels a lot like, what is it, Bubble Bobble, essentially. It's similar to yours, actually, Eileen, in that you move left or right, and then you've got your jump button. And this will be kind of hard doing sideways. Spike balls cannot be destroyed. So ultimately, your goal is to clear all the enemies by jumping on them. Playing sideways. There we go. I just have to remember to play in the preview monitor, actually. That's the way to do it. So then I jump down there, and then, you know, more monsters kind of appear. And ultimately, like, you can do this thing where you can hold down your button and jump off of them onto the next one, although it's not working as well.
So you stay on this screen the whole time.
You stay on the screen, like, until you clear it.
Okay.
Right. And if you can clear it without getting hit at all, then you get and you pick up the star that appears at the end, if I can even get there while playing sideways, then you finish the level perfect. I have not once finished any of these levels perfect.
I never
always
finish
get
it perfect.
Yeah, and I cannot play sideways. I'll have to work on this. Anyways, it's a lot of fun. It's got a real retro kind of feel to it.
It looks
a lot
cool.
of different types of characters. Like, these are skeleton guys that you hit once, they kind of die, but then they come back to life, and then you have to hit them again. And it totally has the thing where, here, I'll go back to the list here. It totally has the boss system. So you get to the end, and what do you know? You've got a boss to fight.
No
and you
way.
get to kind of run along and wait for him to shoot. And, you know, hit him a number of times, and not the most creative boss in the world, but nonetheless, you feel like you've accomplished something if you kill him. So, so yeah, I think it just kind of, it has this retro feel to it that's really replayable for me. I played it again this morning, actually, as I was kind of writing up a few notes on it for like an hour, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun.
That looks cool.
It's the best Super Nintendo game that was never released.
There you go.
Not that it was a Super Nintendo game to begin with, but it very well could have been.
Very cool.
So that's it. It's Blue Kid, BLOOKID. And actually, I'm really curious, Nick, as a game developer and someone who lives and breathes games from the development side, and this isn't factored into the voting, by the way, but are there any like games that have really caught your attention on Android right now, aside from?
I mean, actually, I was thinking of mentioning one of them that I play a lot. Actually, is called it's by another indie developer, but it's called Galcon. It's actually a pretty neat little game. You kind of just I could spend hours on this one. Very simple, but it gets very addictive. Where basically you have these planets, and the size of them controls like how fast your units grow, and you just want to drag over and try to take over more and more planets while the AI tries to take over other planets. Really neat game, and you could get really hooked on it. And you're basically fighting back and forth to try to take over planets as fast as faster than the AI does. So it's a really neat game.
And that's Galcon?
I just wanted to mention it. Galcon, yes.
Nice.
Very
That's cool. I had not heard of that, and it looks like it's probably better experienced on a tablet versus a phone, which...
Well, actually, I think that their phone, the phone version works pretty well, but I was just showing on the tablet because it was bigger.
It's a little bit bigger.
Right. It's a bigger screen, but it works great on the phone, too.
Right on. Nice. Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know how to add that to the vote on the fly, so we'll just stick with the 3 that I had already added in advance. So
that's a bonus.
Yeah, right. That's a bonus one. That's a freebie. That's a bonus level. Poll.cm/165. And if you go there, you can let us know which of the 3 games that we covered officially on today's show you like the most. Fieldrunners, They Need to Be Fed, Blue Kid. Again, that's poll.cm/165. And check it out. And now I'm going to be out next week.
I can't believe it. We haven't been together in like a couple of weeks now.
Yeah, I know. And I got to tell you, I feel a little weird taking time off. You know, starting this Friday, the first week that we're in the new studio, feels a little weird.
Vacation.
I do, and the vacation was planned well in advance before there was ever a solid date on the move to the TWiT studio. So I don't really feel that bad. But so it's going to be you and Ron.
Me and Ron and a mystery guest.
Da-da-da.
Maybe I'll pull in the other Jason.
Yeah, there you go. Jason Applebaum.
Just to fill the Jason void.
Yeah, right.
And we've decided that we're going to do video chat clients. So Tango, Fring. I don't know if we're going to do Google Talk or not because not everybody has 2.4. I guess Skype. Yeah,
Skype
we
is
can do that
totally
too
in there.
now. So, send us your suggestions too as what video chat clients we should review. But those are the ones that are mulling around in my head right now. I don't know what Ron uses. I think he'll probably say Skype, but who knows?
Yeah.
Cool. We'll miss you next week.
Well, I will miss you guys too, but I'll be hanging out at a lake, so it'll be nice.
He won't miss us. He really won't miss us. I doubt it.
I will download the podcast and listen to it on the flight home. Well, cool. Well, hey, Nick, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really awesome to have you on the show, and definitely to share your developer insight. It's something that people have been asking us to do for a long time.
Sure. Yeah. No. It's been a great experience.
So this is definitely your chance to plug whatever you want to plug. And actually, one question I meant to ask is, do you have any new projects kind of on the horizon that maybe people haven't heard of or that aren't released yet?
So we are working on things to come out, but right now I'm not going to say what they are. But we have, this is to, like Fieldrunners 1 is basically to get us out on the Android platform and try everything and see how it goes. So we're going to see what happens. I mean, if that does well, I mean, then maybe other future titles may come out for Android. We don't know yet what we're doing with that. So, we'll see how it kind of goes. And the other thing I will say, though, we are definitely going to be releasing downloadable content for the Android app. We're going to have extra maps coming out. One thing we're not even sure how we're going to do it yet is if we're going to release a single downloadable map every month or so, or have them all, like a bunch of them come out at once. We're still working on that, but that's in the works. So.
Cool. Do you normally send people to fieldrunners.com or is it Subatomic Studios?
Yes. No, fieldrunners.com works. I mean, you can also go to, we have subatomicstudios.com as well, but either or will take you to the same place.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks so much, Nick, and definitely once
sure.
When you have another project kind of coming out, we would love to bring you back on and talk about that and see kind of some of the lessons you learned from now until then, whatever those may be. So thanks again.
Yeah, sure, I'd be glad.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it for the show.
I think that's it.
Thank you again, Nick. Yeah, man, this has just been so weird in our new
But it's good. I actually
like it.
like the feel of this, being able to not have to switch and
oh yeah, you're really
think, in the video switching realm. Mm-hmm. Oh man, it's such a weight off my shoulders. But yeah, this feels good. I'm sorry I'll miss next week, but I'll see you the week after.
Yep.
And so that's it, folks. That's it for this week. You can send us a voicemail at 347-SHOW-AAA. You can send us an email or a video mail if you prefer. That's aaa@twit.tv. You can hit us up on Twitter at Android Show. Check out our show notes. They're posted at twit.tv/AAA. And finally, you can catch us live every Monday, usually from 5 to 6 p.m. Pacific at live.twit.tv. So for Eileen and myself, thanks so much. And Nick, thank you again. Have a fantastic week, everyone. Bye.